How is everyone doing today? How is everyone doing today? I hope you slept well. Welcome in. We're going to begin reading shortly. Just giving time for people to come into the book club. Welcome. Be sure to tap the screen and repost the live. We will begin reading in a moment. Welcome in, welcome in. We're about to begin reading in a moment. Today we are beginning chapter 8. Yes, chapter 8. Welcome everyone, come on in. Welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome. So we are beginning chapter 8 today. And chapter 8 is called They Offered Incense to the Queen of Heaven. Something's wrong with my eye. Okay. Give me 1 second to get my glasses and I'll begin reading. Okay. So chapter 8 begins on page 163, and it is called They Offered Incense to the Queen of Heaven. Though buried deep beneath the sands of what was once Canaan, statues of the female deity have been continually unearthed in archaeological excavations. These images of the goddess, some dating back as far as 7000 BC, offer silent testimony to the most ancient worship of the Queen of Heaven in the land that is today most often remembered as the birthplace of both Judaism and Christianity. Yigael Yadin, professor of archaeology at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and director of the Institute of Archaeology there, recently published his account of the excavation of the city of Hazor in biblical Canaan. Somewhat evasively, he describes the evidence of the worship of the goddess there in this way. Quote, although the official religion of northern Israel was that of Yahweh, the God of Israel, we know from both biblical verses and archaeological discoveries that the cult of Baal and Astarte strongly influenced the local population in the form of folk or popular beliefs, for double insurance, as it were. Indeed, we discovered quite a number of clay figurines representing Astarte, the fertility goddess, and of what may be called the holy prostitutes connected with the Baal and Astarte cult. Discussing the late Bronze Age in Canaan, about 1500 to 1300 BC, Professor Albright tells us that one of the commonest classes of religious objects found in late bronze levels is constituted by the so-called Astarte plaques. These are pottery plaques, generally oval in shape, on which were impressed from a pottery or metal mold a figure of a nude goddess Asherah, in face, with her arms upraised, grasping lily stalks or serpents or both in her hands. The goddess's head is adorned with two long spiral ringlets, identical with the Egyptian Hathor ringlets. These plaques were borrowed from Mesopotamia, where they have a long prehistory in the early Bronze Age, about 3200 to 2100 BC. Kathleen Kenyon, former director of the British School of Archaeology at Jerusalem, discussing biblical Canaan, writes of the Astarte plaques, which are the most common cult object on almost all sites of the period, late Bronze Age, that such plaques with their association with Phoenician religion are found, cannot, however, be taken on any particular site as evidence that it had not yet come under Israel control. For Tell, be it Mersum itself, provides clear evidence for the occurrence of such plaques or similar figurines right down to the 7th century BC. The denunciations by the prophets are enough to show that Yahwehism had continuously to struggle with the ancient religion of the land. In exploring the influence and importance of the worship of the goddess in Canaan in biblical times, we find that as Ashtaroth, Asherah, Astarte, Ataret, Anath, or simply Elat or Baalat, both defined as goddess, she was the principal deity of such great Canaanite sites as Tyre, Sidon, Ascalon, Beth, Anath, Apaka, Byblos, and Ashtaroth Karnaim. In 1894, Robertson Smith conjectured with Astarte had already become the less important wife of Baal by biblical times. Yet we read inscriptions to the goddess in Canaan as celestial ruler, mistress of kingship, mother of all deities. She is certainly associated with Baal, or a Baal or many Baalim, but upon careful observation, we find that the ritual and form of the religious practices are those of the ancient goddess religion. According to Seton Lloyd, professor of Western Asiatic archaeology, the word Baal, which is usually translated as Lord, originally implied a temporary position or temporary ownership of property. It may have been used much like the Indo European word pati, also used as lord, owner, master, and husband, and as I mentioned before, may even be related to the Sanskrit word bala. In the legends of Ugarit in northern Canaan, Baal of Mount Sapphin asked the goddess, known there as Anath, to help secure a temple for him when he had none. In these same legends of the 14th century BC, Anath easily slew the enemy who had been powerful enough to first frighten and then murder Baal. Though the name Baal may have been introduced centuries earlier as the storm god of Mount Sapphin by the Hurrians in Ugarit, by the time of the writing of these legends, the name was also identified with the consort of the goddess, and in Ugarit, Baal held the dual role as storm god of the mountain and the dying consort, much like Dumuzi, Tammuz, Attis, Osiris, and Adonis. Upon his death, we are told, Anath's grief for him was like that of a cow for her calf. Even Thorel, an older male deity, described by some writers as the head of the deities at Ugarit, was recorded to have hidden in the innermost sanctuary of his 8 chambers, trembling in fear at the approach of the mighty Anath. In these same texts, Anath was known as mistress of kingship, mistress of dominion, mistress of the high heavens. In light of the tablets of northern Canaan, one can hardly defend the idea that either of these male deities was portrayed as all powerful or omnipotent, unless one simply insists upon assuming that all male deities always are. Though this conclusion is left unspoken by most writers, it is the goddess Anath who emerges from these Canaanite legends as the deity of greatest valor and strength. In in his Dictionary of the Bible of 1900, J. Hastings asserted that Ashtaroth was supreme, saying of her, quote, "This goddess was the chief divinity of the Semites in their primitive matriarchal stage of organization. She was the analog of the human matriarch, free in her love, the fruitful mother of the clan and its leader in peace and war." Close quote. In the pages of the Old Testament, however, Ashtaroth, the name used most often in southern Canaan, where most of the Hebrew people had settled, seldom appears alone. Her name was nearly always joined with Baal, much as many of the serpent demons of the Indo European legends were the sons of husbands of the goddess. At times, the religion is even designated as Baalism, though it is certainly possible that the Canaanite religion in the south, where Aryan princes had by now made deep inroads, may have elevated Baal to a higher status by later biblical times. The worship, the rituals, the sexual customs, the eunuch priests, the grieving for Tammuz or Baal as the dying consort, the abundance of the Astarte statues and plaques, the symbolic pillars and poles, all reveal that it was the symbolism and customs of the religion of the goddess that were actually the target of Hebrew aggression. It appears more than likely that the Levite priests, just as they purposely misspelled and mispronounced her name, recited as Boseth, meaning shame, and referring to her only in the masculine gender, refused to even recognize the position of the goddess, doing this by continually linking her name with that of her male consort. As we read before, the Bible and other religious literature may well be partially the result of intentional political aims as much as a record of some long standing belief or lore. In discussing the paradise myth of the Bible, Joseph Campbell wrote of conspicuous, contrived counterfeit mythologies. Professor Chiara wrote on the Marduk myth was probably propagated with the help of the Babylonian armies and pointed out that the Asher legend of supremacy was simply a reworked version of the Marduk myth. He also wrote that the myth of Adam and Eve had been evidently produced in scholarly circles, and further explained that the Bible was subject to the censorship of priests who had the power of decision over what was fit to be incorporated into the history of the founders of the race. Professor Wittengren also commented that the Bible as we know it has in many passages quite obviously been exposed to censorship and correspondingly purged. Though many accounts of the Bible are probably based on actual historical events, confirmed in various ways by documents and evidence produced by archaeological excavation, it seems quite likely that the biblical Levite reports of the pagan religion in Canaan were presented from the point of view that was most advantageous and acceptable to the Levite theology, rather than as a totally objective historical record. Despite the various methods used to confuse the identity and gender of the goddess as Ashtaroth or Asherah, even in the Bible as we know it today, passages and symbolism betray the influential and prevailing presence of the ancient worship of the female deity, while other Canaanite and Near Eastern artifacts confirm it. In Egypt, the Hebrews had known the worship of the goddess as Isis or Hathor. For 4 generations, they had been living in a land where women held a very high status, and the matrilineal descent system continued to function at most periods. Judging from the numbers of the Hebrews who emerged from Egypt, as compared with the family of the 12 sons who supposedly entered it 4 generations earlier, it seems likely that a great number of those Hebrew people, known as Israelites, may actually had been Egyptians, Canaanites, Semitic nomads, and other goddess worshipping people who had joined together in Egypt. Just to the east of Canaan, in Babylon, stood the temples of Ishtar. And in the land of Canaan, the land that the Hebrews invaded and made their own after their departure from Egypt, archaeological records and artifacts reveal that the religion of the goddess as Ashtaroth, Astarte, Asherah, Anath, Alat, or Baalat still flourished in many of the great cities. Ye shall destroy their altars, break their images. The Levite writers of the Old Testament claim that their deity had presented them with the land of Canaan as the promised land. Yet it is clear, even in their own accounts, that Canaan was not an empty land, even in the time of Abraham. In Numbers chapter 13, verses 17 through 19, it was recorded that upon the arrival of the Hebrew tribes as they approached from the deserts of Sinai, they sent an advanced envoy into the cities of Canaan. This was their report of the situation about 1300 to 1250 BC. We went into the land to which you sent us. It does indeed flow with milk and honey. This is its produce. At the same time, its inhabitants are a very powerful people. The towns are fortified and very big. Numbers 13:28. The Bible account admits that Canaan was already inhabited and that many of the people lived in great fortified towns. Despite this, we read of the intention of the arrival Hebrews not only to continue into the land of Canaan, but to purposely and violently destroy the existing religion and replace it with their own. This intention was presented by the Levites as the command of Yahweh, supposedly ordered before the Israelites entered Canaan. Observe thou that which I command thee this day. Behold, I drive out before thee the Amorite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite, Take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land whither thou goest, lest it be for a snare in the midst of thee. But ye shall destroy their altars, break their images, and cut down their groves. For thou shalt worship no other God. For the Lord, whose name is a jealous God. Exodus chapter 34, verses 11 through 16. With this order, the Hebrew invasion of Canaan began. Though the Hebrew entrance into the promised land of Canaan is often imagined to be arrival into a haven of peace after centuries of slavery in Egypt, according to the Bible, its occupation took the form of a series of bloody sieges, perhaps much like those of the earlier Indo-European invasions. In Deuteronomy 2:33, we read that under the leadership of Moses and Aaron, the Israelites met a king named Sihon at the time of Jahaz. The Levite accounts tell us, the Lord our God delivered him into our hands. We killed him with his sons and all his people. We captured all his cities at that time and put to death everyone in the cities, men, women, and dependents. We left no survivor. When they met, Og, I was about to say OG, that's so funny. Anyway, when they met Og, king of Bashan, we are told in Deuteronomy chapter 3, verses 3 through 7, that so the Lord our God also delivered Og, king of Bashan, into our hands with all his people. We slaughtered them and left no survivor. In all, we took 60 cities. Thus we put to death all the men, women, and dependents in every city. Both Aaron and Moses died in the desert. Joshua assumed command and the Israelites entered Jericho. We learn in Joshua 6:21 that under the ban, they destroyed everything in the city. They put everyone to the sword, men and women, young and old. But in this same siege, we are told that all the silver and gold, all the vessels of copper and iron shall be holy. They belong to the Lord, and they must go into the Lord's treasury. Joshua 6:19. And in Joshua 6:24, we learn that these orders were carried out as they set fire to the city and everything in it, except that they deposited the silver and gold and the vessels of copper and iron in the treasury of the Lord's house. In the Battle of Ai, we are told the number who were killed that day, men and women, was 12,000, the whole population of Ai. Joshua 8:25. And in Joshua 8:29, it claims that Joshua hanged the king of Ai on a tree and left him there till sunset. Since in an earlier passage, Joshua was told by Yahweh to do with the king of Ai as he had done with the king of Jericho, we may assume that this was the king of Jericho's fate as well. Though the account of the event is no longer recorded, we read in Joshua 10, quote, Joshua captured Makedai and put both king and people to the sword, destroying both them and every living thing in the city. He left no survivor, and he dealt with the king of Makedai as he had dealt with the king of Jericho. Then Joshua and all the Israelites marched on from Makedai to Libnah and attacked it. The Lord delivered its king and the city to the Israelites, and they put its people and every living thing in it to the sword. They left no survivor there, and dealt with its king as they had dealt with the king of Jericho. From Libnah, Joshua and all the Israelites marched on Lachish, took up their positions, and attacked it. The Lord delivered Lachish into their hands. They took it on the second day and put every living in it to the sword, as they had done in Libnah. Close quote. Meanwhile, Horam, king of Gezer had advanced to the relief of Lachish. But Joshua struck them down, both king and people, and not a man of them survived. Then Joshua and all the Israelites marched on from Lachish to Eglon, took up their positions, and attacked it. That same day they captured it and put its inhabitants to the sword, destroying every living thing in it as they had done at Lachish. From Eglon, Joshua and all the Israelites advanced to Hebron and attacked it. They captured it and put its king to the sword with every living thing in it, and in it all its villages. As at Eglon, he left no survivor, destroying it and hold on one second, and every living thing in it. Then Joshua and all the Israelites wheeled round towards Debir and attacked it. They captured the city with its king and all its villages, put them to the sword and destroyed every living thing. They left no survivor. They dealt with Debir and its king, and as they had dealt with Hebron and with Libnah and its king. So Joshua massacred the population of the whole region, the hill country, the Negeb, the Shepla, the watersheds, and all their kings. He left no survivor, destroying everything that drew breath, as the Lord, the God of Israel, had commanded. This is Joshua 10, verses 28 through 40. In similarly described sieges, Joshua and the Israelites destroyed the cities of Gibeon, Hazar, and as far as Baal, Gad in the vale of the Lebanon under Mount Hermon. At the risk of being repetitive, I cannot help thinking of Professor Albright's comment that the orgiastic nature worship of Canaan was replaced by Israel with its pastoral simplicity and purity of life, its lofty monotheism, and its severe code of ethics. Rather than the image of poor downtrodden slaves with lofty ideals, entering the promised land to rest their weary bones and build a new and better life, we are more likely to be reminded of the description Professor Lloyd gave of the Luvian entrance into Anatolia and the pathway that was made as their progress was marked by signs of widespread destruction. As if in further refutation of this supposed purity of life or severe code of ethics, we read that although all the accounts state that the Israelites left no survivors, this may not have been the total truth. For in the book of Numbers, we read that after a battle against the Midianites, while still under the leadership of Moses and Aaron, the Israelites were told, "Kill every male dependent and kill every woman who has had intercourse with a man, but spare for yourselves every woman among them who has not had intercourse." In Numbers 31, verses 32 to 35, we read a list of the spoils and war booty taken by the Israelites at this same battle. In order, they list sheep, cattle, asses, and 32,000 girls who had no intercourse with a man. In the book of Deuteronomy, also preceding the command of Joshua, we find, "When you wage war against your enemy and the Lord your God delivers them into your hands, and you take some of them captive, then if you see a comely woman among the captives and take a liking to her, you may marry her. You shall bring her into your house, where she shall shave her head, pare her nails, and discard the clothes she had when she was captured. Then she shall stay in your house and mourn her father and mother for a full month. After that, you may have intercourse with her. You shall be her husband, and she your wife. But if you no longer find her pleasing, let her go free. You must not sell her, nor treat her harshly, since you have had your will with her." Deuteronomy 21, verses 10 through 14. Though once again the numbers may have been somewhat exaggerated, these passages suggest that many of the women who were later known as the wives of the Israelites may well have been the girls who witnessed the murders of all of their families and friends, and the destruction of their homes and towns. The combination of the fear and trauma they must have felt have been taken into the Hebrew tribes in this way, along with their memories of their childhood customs and religions, must have made their attitude and position in Hebrew life a most difficult one. Though the number of women in the Hebrew tribes is never listed, these passages also suggest that when the Hebrews first left Egypt, there may have been a much greater percentage of men. Each of these factors may help to explain the Hebrew women's acceptance of the new patriarchal laws. Good morning. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Be sure to tap the screen and repost the live. Thank you. The next section is called, "And they forsook the Lord and worshipped Baal and Ashtoreth." Though according to biblical records, the entire population of many towns and cities had been massacred, several great cities had not been touched, cities where Ashtaroth was still worshipped with great reverence. Once in Canaan, the captured lands were divided among the tribes, the Levites to live among each of them. From this point on, we observe the lengthy and violent attack the Hebrews launched upon the Queen of Heaven and her Baal. Despite all the warnings, the religion of the goddess was a great temptation to the Hebrews who had invaded Canaan. To many of them, it may have been the religion of their ancestors. References to the Hebrew people worshiping in the ancient religion repeatedly appear in the pages of the Bible. Once again, the accounts of the Levite priests in Judges 2:13, "And they forsook the Lord and worshipped Baal and Ashtoreth." Judges 3:7, "And the people did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, forgetting the Lord their God, and served the Baals and the Ashtoreth." Samuel 7:3 and 4. "Samuel spake unto the house of Israel, saying, If ye do return unto the Lord with all your hearts, then put away the strange gods and Ashtoreth from among you, and prepare your hearts unto the Lord, and serve him only, and he will deliver you out of the hands of the Philistines." The period of Samuel took place in the time of Saul, the first Hebrew king, about 1050 BC. Judges takes place before that time. According to the Bible, King Solomon at about 960 to 922 BC worshipped Ashtoreth, as well as other local deities. He was eventually threatened with the loss of his kingdom for having forsaken Yahweh and revering the Queen of Heaven, Ashtoreth of the Sidonians. In 1 Kings 15:13, we find the report of the dethroning of Queen Maacah by her son or grandson Asa at about 910 BC. The crime, worshiping Asherah. The name Asherah was also used in the texts of northern Canaan, at times alongside Anath. They may have been worshipped as mother and daughter at that time. But Asherah is also identified with Ashtaroth, who was deeply revered in Tyre and Sidon under that name. One text of northern Canaan describes Asherah as follows: "He arrived at the shrine of Asherah of the Tyrians, yea, of the goddess of the Sidonians." In the text of Ugarit, Asherah was known as the creator of all deities. The defection from Yahweh, as described above, continued throughout the biblical accounts, as we shall see. But a most revealing passage in this book of Jeremiah, this incident book, this incident took place in a Hebrew colony in Egypt at about 600 BC. Here, the religion of the goddess and the reverence paid to her, even by the Hebrews of that time, was described not as a new religion that they had recently adopted, but one that these Hebrews had followed before in Jerusalem. It also strongly hints that this was a religion of women, though the Levite writer carefully depicted the husbands as having authority and exhibits an obvious insistence upon male lineage in the answer given by the worshippers of the Queen of Heaven. At this time, all the men who knew their wives offered incense to alien gods, and all the women who were standing there are a large assembly with all the people living in Pathros in the land of Egypt, answered Jeremiah as follows: We have no intention listening to this word you have spoken to us in Yahweh's name, but intend to go on doing all that we have vowed to do, offering incense to the Queen of Heaven and pouring libations in her honor, as we used to do, we and our fathers, our kings and our leaders in the town of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. We had plenty of food then, we lived well, we suffered no disasters. But since we have given up offering incense to the Queen of Heaven and pouring libations in her honor, we have been destitute and have perished either by sword or by famine. The women added, When we offer incense to the Queen of Heaven and pour libations in her honor, do you think we make cakes for her with her features on them and pour libations to her without our husband's knowledge? Jeremiah 44, verses 15 through 19. Professor Hook asked, What are we to say when we find in the record the gardens of Adonis, Ezekiel's chambers of imagery, women declaring that since they ceased baking cakes for the Queen of Heaven, nothing has gone well with them? The Masaboth, the Asherahs, the divinations, and the numerous other practices. And answered, It is surely impossible to deny that these are foreign elements, some Canaanite, some presumably Assyrio-Babylonian, and some possibly Egyptian, and that all these enter into the picture of the religion of Israel as it appears in the Old Testament. Professor Wittengren, as if in additional answer, observed, Now this Queen of Heaven cannot possibly be any other goddess than Astarte, who accordingly as late as circa 600 enjoyed official worship in the kingdom of Judah. Many Bible passages report that idols of the female deity referred to as Asherah were to be found on every high hill, under every green tree, and alongside altars in the temples. They were a symbol identified with the worship of the goddess as Asherah, and may have been a pole or a living tree, perhaps carved as a statue. Arthur Evans wrote that the biblical records again and again attest the cult of Asherah either as a living tree or its substitute, the dead post or pole before which the Canaanite altars were set. I suspect that the Asherim, plural, were actually fig trees. The sycamore fig, the tree that was in Egypt considered to be the body of the goddess on earth. There are many reasons to believe that this is so, evidence that we shall examine more thoroughly in unraveling the myth of Adam and Eve. Evidence that appears explains the symbolism of the tree in the paradise myth. Continuing our exploration of the presence of the goddess in Canaan, biblical accounts tell us that the Asherim, though their association with Asherah as the goddess is never explained, were to be found everywhere. And the people of Israel did secretly against the Lord their God things that were not right. They built high places, set up pillars and Asherim on every high hill and under every green tree. They served idols, made molten images of two calves. They made an Asherah and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord. 2 Kings 17:9. As the Levites declared that it was the Hebrew mission to destroy these symbols of the religion they so often refer to as their gods, wherever they are found, this is exactly what they did. The Levite priests wrote that the destruction had been commanded by Yahweh. You shall surely destroy all the places where the nations whom you shall dispossess serve their gods. Upon the high mountains and upon the hills and under every green tree you shall tear down their pillars and burn their Asherim with fire. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verses 2 and 3. You shall not plant any tree as an Asherah beside the altar of the Lord. Deuteronomy 16:21. But despite the warnings of the Levite priests, the Asherim were continually erected and worshipped. In 1 Kings 16:13, we read that about 1850 BC, the Hebrew king Ahab, husband of Jezebel, made an Asherah. Isaiah, sometime in the 8th century BC, spoke of Asherim in the city of Damascus. Gideon, in the period of Judges, destroyed the Asherah of one temple, using its wood as a burnt offering to Yahweh. It was threatened that the Lord will smite Israel because they have made their Asherim. King Hezekiah, who reigned about 1750 to 690 BC, did what was right in the eyes of the Lord. He broke the pillars and cut down the Asherah. It was this same Hezekiah who destroyed a bronze serpent which had been kept at the temple in Jerusalem from the time of the arrival of the Hebrews in Canaan. After Hezekiah, his son Manasseh, who ruled for 55 years, once again erected the Asherim, as did his son Amon, who succeeded him. In 2 Kings 23, verses 4 through 15, the Levite priest Hilkiah, who served King Josiah at about 630 BC, took the vessels made for Asherah and Baal out of this same temple in Jerusalem. He removed the Asherah. Quote, he defiled the high place which Solomon had built for Ashtoreth. He broke in pieces the pillars and cut down the Asherim and filled their places with the bones of men. Close quote. Though again, the religion of the goddess is never mentioned. Further evidence of her worship in Canaan during late biblical times was revealed by the presence of the mourners for her son lover Tammuz. In the book of Ezekiel, we read of the women weeping for Tammuz at this same temple in Jerusalem at about 620 BC, continuing to practice the mourning ceremonies of the religion of the goddess, known so well from the Babylonian accounts of Ishtar. As previously quoted, Professor Wittengren asserted that a ritual mourning took place in Israel commemorating the death of Tammuz, just as it did in Mesopotamia. I. Epstein, in his History of Judaism, written in 1959, wrote of the influx of pagan ideas, especially at the time of Solomon, blaming Solomon's wives for his idolatrous ways. There is a strong possibility that Solomon's habit of collecting foreign princesses for his harem, 700 of them according to the Bible, may have been a politically motivated system of securing the ultimate right to rule over the conquered lands by marrying the heiresses. The relationship of the rights to many a throne in the Near East to the matrilineal descent pattern of the goddess. The goddess worshipping people may explain the great number of royal foreign women, all listed as legal wives of Solomon, and the accepted presence of the religions which they brought with them. After Solomon's reign, when the Hebrew tribes divided into two separate nations, the worship of the goddess continually appeared. This is evident in Samaria, the capital of the northern kingdom. Israel, during the period of Ahab and Jezebel, about 869 to 850 BC, the worship of Ashtaroth and her Baal was apparently flourishing there at that time. The marriage of the Hebrew Ahab to Jezebel, the daughter of the queen and king of Sidon, who also served as high priestess and priest to Ashtoreth and Baal, may also have brought to him a more legitimate right to the throne. But even King Jeroboam, before that time, about 922 to 901 BC, had made golden calves, symbols of the goddess religion. In Judah, the southern Hebrew kingdom, whose capital was Jerusalem, Rehoboam, at about 922 to 915 BC, and his son Abijam, both perhaps reigning as husbands of Queen Maacah, were said to have practiced pagan idolatries. As we know, Queen Maacah worshipped Asherah and was eventually dethroned for having made an idol of her. At about 842 BC, Queen Athaliah ruled in Jerusalem, and with her reign, the pagan religion continued to flourish. As Jezebel's daughter, we may once again question if, in the eyes of many of the people of Canaan, Athaliah held the right to rule as the granddaughter of the high priestess and priest of Ashtaroth in Sidon. At about 735 to 727 BC, King Ahaz also followed the ancient religion, committing evil in the eyes of the Lord. At about 620 BC, the women of Ezekiel's time were seen weeping for Tammuz at the temple in Jerusalem, while in Jeremiah's day, about 600 BC, rebellious women openly announced their intention of continuing to revere the Queen of Heaven. Summary. As a result of archaeological evidence, which helps to explain many of the obscure references, despite the evasive wording and lack of explanation in the Bible, there is no question that in biblical periods of Canaan, the Levite priests of the Hebrews were in continual contact with the religion of the goddess. Though the commanded destruction of artifacts has probably resulted in fewer archaeological finds in southern Canaan than the rest of the Near East, masses of evidence of the extensive worship of the goddess have been unearthed in all the other lands in which the Hebrews either lived or were in close contact. Lands such as Egypt, Babylon, Sinai, and northern Canaan. Surrounding the Hebrews in southern Canaan were the original inhabitants of Canaan, people who lived in the cities that had not been destroyed and who had revered the female divinity from the most ancient times. As revealed by the Bible itself, the adoration of the goddess, even in the Hebrew capitals of Samaria and Jerusalem, even by those who were considered to be members of the tribes that followed the new religion of Yahweh, most especially the royalty and rulers who do not seem to have been chosen from the Levite tribe, appears to be one of the major influential factors in the development of the Judaic and later Christian attitudes. The possibility that the Levites may originally have been related to the Indo-European Luvians, while the other tribes may have been descendants of the Mediterranean goddess-worshipping peoples, may help to explain this division between the Levite priests and prophets and the continual waywardness and defection of the Israelite people who appear to have drifted toward the ancient religion time and time again. The Levite priests declared, "There shall be no cult prostitutes of the daughters of Israel." Yet, as we have already seen, the ancient sexual customs continued. It seems to have been the very nature of the sexual customs, so inherent and integral a part of the female religion, allowing for and possibly encouraging matrilineal descent patterns to continue, that aroused the most violent reactions among the Levite patrilinealists. Once aware of the continual presence of the goddess religion, a careful reading of the accounts in the Old Testament, in which a Hebrew woman was initially assigned to the secondary status of obedient assistant, reveals extensive passages spent in continuous threat, at times veiled or hidden in symbolism, against the worship of the goddess. But some of the threats were more open. They were aimed at those who continued to practice the ancient religion, revealing even within the records of the Bible accounts of slaughter and massacre of those who dared to pray to other gods. As we shall see in the following chapter, the insistent and repetitious sexual imagery allows us to observe the Levite attitudes toward the sexual customs of the goddess religion and the sexual autonomy of women generally, autonomy that had for thousands of years helped to allow women to retain their independence economically, socially, and legally. Thus, into the laws of the Levites was written the destruction of the worship of the divine ancestress, and with it, the final destruction of the matrilineal system. And with that, we conclude chapter 8. We conclude chapter 8. Any thoughts and questions for the chapter that we just read? I'm glad that, with everything, right, she was able to take a chapter to go into um, basically what it says in the Bible. And I think it's very interesting that people would choose, like, openly and willingly choose a pathway or a religion or a God that would invade and destroy an entire people just so that you can have their land. And not even an entire people, but to take the virgin children, little girls, as wives. I think that part is very important. And I feel like if we were to speak with Christians or Hebrew Israelites, I feel like that is a question that is always posed to them, but their response is never anything that would say whether they agree or disagree. And I've come across people who said, well, that is what happened at that time. It's just a historical account of what happened. And they kind of try their very best to, show no emotion or say, well, that has nothing to do with me. And I think that's the energy that they have, that, oh, well, that has nothing to do with me. Um, and they try to distance themselves from it. But I think that that is a major portion of your religion, of your story, right? And if this is something that you are identifying as, because now it's no longer just something that you do, like Christianity is not just a practice that you have, it is your identity, right? To be Christ-like, right? To be a Jew. So that means that you yourself are identifying with this as your identity, as a nationality, basically. This is more than just a religion, it's your nationality. And what you're saying is that your God is the God of all things, the supreme creator of all things. And this is what your God did to people. But your God made all people, according to what you believe. So again, I pose this question to them and I say, this is the basis of how your God operates, right? This is the basis of how your God operates. This is why I have a video speaking about how the God of the Bible is a colonizer. This is why I say that. I don't say it because, you know, just for any particular reason or my feelings. I say so because in your scripture, it details how his chosen people had to pillage and destroy not only the people, but their culture and their religion in order to have a promised land. Why was the land, if he's the God of all things, why couldn't he promise you a land that was already vacant? Why did you have to go in and destroy 40,000 people? Why did you have to do that? Greetings. You just added this to your reading list. Beautiful. You read a few pages. We're starting chapter 9 tomorrow. We just read chapter 8. Greetings, everyone. So my thing is this, right? as humans, right, who has a wealth of knowledge at their fingertips, right? We have the internet, we have libraries, we have books, we have museums, we have all different types of ways in which we can educate ourselves in this day and time. I feel like more now than ever before, now that the internet is possible, right? We have the ability to make a sound decision for ourselves. We no longer have to accept any particular religion just because our mothers and fathers, our parents, our families subscribe to it, right? We no longer have to go with the majority just because the majority is doing it. I don't know if anyone has ever heard their mother tell them this, like, oh, you want to be a follower? If everybody go jump off a bridge, you're going to go jump too. That is our mothers teaching us to think for ourselves. That is a very fundamental lesson that I believe we all got in grade school, you know? So the fact that we go through our lives being a follower without making a decision for ourselves is absolutely asinine. And there are so many other options. I need people to understand, like, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam is not the only pathways to the divine. That is not the only spiritual systems that you can discover and learn and be able to choose for yourself. And when I ask people, Christianity is the most popular religion on the planet, I ask them, why don't you think about that? Think about why that is. Why do most people subscribe to Christianity over all the other religions in the world? Exactly. There's over 4,500 known religions, plus unknown ones, right? Um, so that means we have power of choice. We have power of choice. That means you have, just as you choose, which career field you would like to go into, a lot of people do not just go into the same career field as their parent just because their parent did it. They choose for themselves what career path they want to go into. The same goes for your spiritual path. Choose for yourself, right? Right. You definitely was asked, if everyone goes jump off a bridge, are you going to follow them? And you're like, of course not, right? Everyone says, of course not, when our parent asks that. But in life, the majority of people are followers. The majority of people are followers, and that's just being real. And we have no idea who is a part of that following portion, right? The great Miss Erica Badu once said, you know, 85% of people are followers, 10% are observers, and only 5% are leaders. Right? So that means that that lesson must have went over our heads as children. That's what that means. That means we didn't get it. We didn't understand what she meant. We thought she was being literal. That's why we answered, no, of course not. No, I would never do that. No, mom. Right? But I think the fact that there are millions of people who subscribe to Christianity and Islam shows that there are followers. And I know this because when you ask people why they chose Christianity, they will usually say, "Oh, it's the religion of my family." Right? They will choose because it is the tradition of their family. They will choose because it requires a sense of community. The truth of the matter is humans want to belong, right? No one wants to be the black sheep. No one wants to be ostracized. No one wants to be ridiculed for their obscure beliefs, right? So they choose the majority. That is a fundamental product of human nature and of the brain. The brain will always go with the majority because it's safer, right? It reads to the body as safe when to go with the majority, right? So now we're speaking about neuroscience and how the brain works. So in general, that means that most people are followers, and they are because the brain has to choose between what's safe and what's not safe. And walking an unknown path is not safe. It doesn't read to the body as safe, right? It takes a very special person to go against the majority. It takes a very special person to rebel. It takes a very special person to go against all that they've ever known and walk a path that is unknown. Most people are fearful of the unknown, right? So imagine so many millions of people are Christians, right? They're doing so out of safety. And I think that, as their historical account says in their Bible, right, that they invaded and turned everybody and all of their religion into ash, put everyone to the sword, as they say, right? That continued with the Crusades, right? Those crusades was simply, my religion is better than yours, bend the knee or die. That's exactly what that was. So people are willingly choosing the one religion that colonized the planet. This is the religion that colonized the planet. Are we understanding what's happening here? Are we not understanding what's happening here? When it comes to all of these slave trades, what were they given? Were they or were they not given the religion and spirituality of the slavers? I need people to think. I need people to think, right? No, 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 no. Don't do that. Don't do that. I see you. What's people using it for evil have to do with God? First of all, God said, right? Yahweh commanded. Did we not just read that? Even if you were not here during the reading, if you read your Bible, it will tell you that he commanded, in order for you to have a place to live, in order for you to have or enter the land of milk and honey, in order for you to have your chosen paradise, you cannot have it for free. It does not come by peace. You have to get rid of some people in order to have that. So your God commanded you do that. That what you call evil, your God did that. He made you that. He made you into a colonizer. Nah, no, 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 no. Don't go back and forth between God and Christ. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Let's not escape accountability here. Oh, Christ at the temple in heaven are within you. Yes, yes, but also the Father of Christ, Yahweh, he's the one that said, you must go into their place, put all the people by the sword, and take the young virgin girls for yourselves. That's what he said. So when you see people following this Bible today, I don't know if you guys noticed this, right? I am someone who I am someone who has a deep interest in cults, right? I watch a lot of documentaries about cults. And I just want to tell you this. Most cults are Christian. They will never tell you this. They will never say this, right? But most religious cults are Christian. As in, they're only doing what what they were inspired to do by the Bible. The Bible is the root cause of all the evil doings of cult leaders. I need you to understand this. If the cult is about if the cult is guilty of abusing children, I bet you I can find the scripture that tells them to do that. Spare the rod, spoil the child, right? If the cult is guilty of rape of women, we just read in Numbers 23 that you can take women for yourselves if they have known no man, right? So every time we look at a cult, notice the authority scripture that they are referencing and carrying out the orders of is the Bible, whether it's FLDS and all of his tapes of him, quote unquote, deflowering all of the young little girls in his commune. I have to be careful with the things I say because I'm on live, but I do not want us to not discuss this. I do not want us to act like this does not happen and act like we don't know, oh, it's just an evil person. No, it's not an evil person. These people are reading instructions and they are carrying out what is within their holy scripture. I need us to understand that it is the holy scripture that is the root cause of the evil that is on this planet. And I'm not saying that just because that's what I think. That is a fact. Speak to these cult leaders and ask them, what made you do these atrocities? They'll tell you, my God, the Bible says. That's what they'll say. Every instance of oppression is rooted within this particular book, within this particular doctrine, because it tells you how to be. It tells you how to be. It tells you that you are superior to all others. And once you feel you're superior to all others, you will treat them like trash. It says in the beginning, Adam will have dominion over the earth and the animals. So Adam, as being the father of mankind, quote unquote, right? Do we not, as a species, act like we have dominion over the earth and the animals? Do we not hunt for sport just to have heads on our walls? Right? These are things that we need to truly sit and think about and take responsibility for the actions that we have been doing. And I'm saying we as in the human species, because the human species is the only species that is disconnected from nature and does harm to its own environment and its own people and its own children. It's stupid. And it's stupid. I'm going to start needing people to like say the truth. Say the truth. The God of the Bible is a colonizer and he creates colonizers. He creates colonizers. So that means that when you subscribe to the Bible, right? And you actually do what it says, right? Because there's different people who follow the Bible, right? There are people who are lackadaisical when it comes to their Christian faith, right? And they do nothing. They do nothing but just love on Christ, right? But then there's people who actually want to follow the Bible for real, right? And how come the people who want to follow the Bible for real are the ones who are quote unquote considered evil? Huh? That would mean that actual application of this doctrine is the root of the evil that we're speaking of, is it not? We have to start using our brains, people. We have to start using our brains. Practical application of this doctrine is evil, right? We have to say it as it is, factually. No sugarcoating, keeping it real. Again, especially the Bible as it is now, right? Because there has been so much that has been removed. There has been, again, it may have helped, possibly, maybe a little bit, if they kept certain books inside of it, right? Because then people would have been able to understand who they are giving their lives to. When you, I don't know if you guys have read the Gnostic Bible. The Gnostic Bible has a lot of removed books, right? That gives you the understanding of who Yahweh is and what his agenda is, right? Because if you read those books, then you would understand that he is a lesser God. He is not the one true supreme being, the creator of all things. He is not that. And that's the books reveal that, right? And then it also reveals that he is a deformity, that he has a lion head and a serpent body, that the goddess Sophia or Barbelo is the one who birthed him, right? And he was ignorant. They called him Saklos, the fool. Right? And he made Adam twice because he made a mistake the first time. So he was not a smart deity. He was not the beginning and source of all things. He was a lesser God, a child who made mistakes, right? A child who is jealous, a child who is possessive, a child who is angry. A deformed child. That's exactly what Yahweh is. And if those books were maintained inside of the Bible, then people would know exactly who they are giving their lives to and who they're worshiping. I've done, Bible study, and in my Bible study, my Bible study is different. In my Bible study, the point of it is to give you all of the information so that you can make a sound decision for yourself. So we read the books that was removed, and then you tell me what you think. Just reading it, I don't add in my interpretation. We read it together, and then you decide how you interpret what we just read. Right? So we went in and we found who Yahweh was. We found how he made Adam, and that the only reason why he made Eve was because he made a mistake with Adam, and he wanted to go inside of Adam and take out the light and power that he put in him, because he didn't want Adam to be like a god. He didn't want Adam to be like himself. He wanted Adam to be a lesser being in the first place, which is why he made him out of the dust of the ground. Okay? And when he went into Adam to try and take the light out, the light, I shall say, that he went to try and take out is actually the power of his mother. The power of Sophia is what he put in Adam by accident, because he's so dumb. When he first made Adam out of the dust of the ground, guess what happened? If anybody here was to try and make a person out of dirt, what you think is going to happen? It's just going to be a mold of a human body. It's not going to have any life in it, right? And that's what happened when Yahweh tried to create a person, a human being. It was a mold of mud and clay. Okay? It had no life in it. So he was told, in order to bring it life, he had to breathe life in it. But when he did that, he didn't know that when he did that, the power that he took from his mother was going to go into that being and give it life. Oh, I didn't even get into the fact that he did take a power from his mother in the first place, because that's how he's able to do all of this. That's how he was able to fashion the cosmos and the earth, because he took a power from his mother. So all of this in existence is because of Sophia. But I digress. And guess how he got the power from his mother? I'm going to let y'all guess. I'm not even going to tell you. He took a power from his mother. And when he breathed into Adam, Adam came alive. And because he saw the light in Adam, he wanted to take it out, because he didn't want Adam to be like himself. And he ended up making Eve as a byproduct. And when they saw Eve, they saw she was beautiful. And him and all of his Elohim, all of his angels, all of his comrades, they decided to grape Eve because she was beautiful, and she mimicked the goddess that was the mother of Yahweh. She looked just like Sophia. Right? I'm giving y'all all the gems. I'm giving you guys all the gems. But this is something that we read. I didn't make this up. I didn't make this up at all. This is something that we actually read in the books that preceded Genesis. So, this book does nothing but teach you how to take, how to invade and take, and be selfish. Oh, which books preceded Genesis? Let me get the names for y'all. Hold on. Let me get my iPad. Let me get my iPad. Let me get it for you guys so that you guys don't think I'm lying. Okay. Let me check. Ooh. I have low battery. Let me see something. All right. 1 second. I'm gonna get the names for you right now. Hold on. Hold on, I got you. Hold on, I'm about to get the names for you right now. All right, so let's see. Okay, the Secret Book of John. The Secret Book of John, that's number 1. The Reality of the Rulers, that's book 2. Then we have, hold on. Let me see something. The Secret Book of John is a big one. That tells you almost everything right in there. That tells you everything in there. This is, I'm trying to see. Did I read all of this? I think I did. Yes, yes, yes. Secret Book of John, as well as The Reality of the Rulers, Three Forms of First Thought. That is another book as well. Three Forms of First Thought. And once we get into, as we continue through Genesis, it's good to start reading some of these books while you're reading Genesis, like Thunder. Read the book Thunder while you're reading Genesis, and read Atrahasis at the same time that you're reading about the flood. Okay, because these correlate, and it gives you the origin of where these stories come from. So not only does this doctrine teach you to oppress, invade, to murder, to grape, but also to steal and plagiarize, to steal the religion of. Because a lot of what's in the Bible came from Sumerian religion. The flood came from the Epic of Gilgamesh, right? So again, this is like, if I were to be completely unknowing, right, and I were to do my research, which I have, on all the religions, all the world's religions, and have a moment to decide which one I would want to associate myself with, it wouldn't be this one, I'll tell you that. This is the worst one. This is horrible. I would never want to be associated with, you know, a pillaging rapist. I would never. Especially someone who steals. It's not even original work. It's not even original. Come on. Even in the text that's telling you, I am your only God, there shall be no other gods before me. Even in that statement, he is showing his insecurity, right? And the fact that his people, quote unquote, his people kept worshiping the goddess and said that we thrived when we was under her, but as soon as we let go of her and we start following you, here we are, famine and death. They're telling you the result and impact of following you in their own book, and people are not using that like in their thought process. I don't understand. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. Right, right. Yes. So, let me see something. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what people are thinking, right? I don't know what people are thinking. But it's highly interesting. It is highly interesting that out of all out of all the religions of the world, 4,000 plus, 4,500, 5,000, whatever. This is the one that people choose. It says a lot about humanity, does it not? This is why. This is exactly why I choose to follow the supreme black goddess. I choose to follow the mother because it is truth. It is divine truth. And it is the religion of abundance, right? In the mother religion, we are taught abundance. We're not taught scarcity. Back before we all was colonized, right? Everyone lived free, right? We lived in accordance with nature. We walked around bare breasted, right? Women were free. Children belonged to the village. We lived in clan homes. Family was everywhere. We were not in nuclear pods where all of the stress of raising human beings had to be on just two individuals and sometimes one because people don't stay together, right? The raising of children is not incumbent upon the success of your romantic relationship in the first place. It's incumbent upon the family that surrounds the mother, the sisters, the aunties, the cousins, the village people. That's what raises children. Who cares if your relationship lasts or not, right? But in this society, children, their livelihood is so heavily impacted on whether your relationship lasts with the woman or the man that you chose. Forgetting the fact that people grow and they grow at different paces, and that things may not be in alignment after 10 years, right? It's very unnatural. It's very unnatural. Yes, God is divine. Like, you're only recognizing the truth, what is innate within you. I'm not telling you nothing you don't already know. But I think, sorry about the siren, y'all. But I think what happens is when I speak, it's not that people do not recognize what I'm saying, is that they do not want to be confronted with the fact that they have lived their lives backwards their entire lives. No one wants to be hit with the truth that their choices in their life has caused harm, whether to themselves, to their family members, to the people that they know and love. That's it. That's it. It's an identity crisis. No one wants to be told, no, who you are is harmful. Everyone wants to think of themselves as pure or great. You know what I mean? No one wants to think of themselves as a monster. But if you have chosen a spiritual path that turns you into a monster, then you are that. So when I come to you and tell you, like, your actions is unbecoming, very undesirable, unfavorable, it's causing harm to others, you need to stop. People don't like that. They do not like that. It's called cognitive dissonance. Their reality glitches. No one wants to be told they've been wrong their entire lives. Nobody wants that. But there are a few people, the few people that I respect, who are not afraid of changing trajectories, not afraid of saying, you know what, I was wrong my whole life. This is not conducive to the health and well being of myself or others. I'm going to change. I'm going to do something different. Those people I respect. I'm going to take time to truly get to know myself. I'm going to take time to truly understand this life and the purpose of my existence. As an I. Those are the people who I respect. Those who are not afraid to go back to the drawing board and undo who they have been to become something new. It's okay. It is a process, but it is okay to go through that process. We are here to learn, we are here to experience. Taking accountability, feeling shame, that is a part of the human experience. It's okay. It is okay. We cannot, we cannot, I forget the word I'm looking for. We cannot allow the guilt and shame to hold us back forever, right? We cannot fault ourselves for what we do in our ignorance. We can only educate ourselves and move forward, um, doing better. That's what we can do, right? Move forward doing better. That's all it takes. That is all it takes. So if you have identified with the God of the Bible for so long, be open to someone who's coming to you and saying, well, do you know who that deity is truly? Have you taken the time to discover who he is before you decided to devote your entire life to him? That is a very valid question. And everyone, I implore everyone who identifies as a Christian, everyone who identifies as a Jew, you know, everyone who identifies as a Hebrew Israelite, right? To take the time to get to know your deity. I know mine. I know my mother. I know her. So again, the culture of the mother is one that teaches you abundance, is one that teaches you love, right? Because Yahweh teaches you fear. He gives you things to do, and if you do not do them, he threatens you with eternal damnation. That is how he works. That's how he operates. And if y'all are comfortable living with that, then cool. But my mother doesn't operate that way. First of all, she encourages you to question. She encourages you to inquire. She wants you to raise your consciousness. She wants you to expand your awareness. She wants you to learn and ask questions. And then when you learn, she wants you to come to her. That is what the whole religion of the goddess is. Come to me so that I may embrace you. Just as you are a 4-year-old child and you are looking for your mom, and then you see her, and then she kneels down and opens her arms and gestures you to come to her. What will you do as a 4-year-old child? Will you turn around and walk away with her arms stretched out, trying to embrace you? Will you walk away from your mom? Because that's what you do every time you choose an Abrahamic religion. You are rejecting the love of your mother every time you do that. You are rejecting the nurturing embrace of your mother, of your divine mother, every time you choose to ignore her and instead give your love to Yahweh. Right. It's always it's always a threat I'm gonna take something from you. So manipulative. It is manipulative. It's manipulative. But that's what people choose. People choose manipulation over divine love. And that is, that is something I want people to actually sit with. Sit with yourself and think about what principle you have chosen to lead your life. Manipulation by means of usurping and oppressing others to get whatever it is that you want, or divine love and abundance, family, and harmony. You choice. It's your choice. It is your choice. You have the ability to choose. But look at your choices. Look at the choices of the people. Y'all are funny. I'm so glad that I have people in this live who have the ability to think for themselves. I'm so glad that I have attracted you here, because the majority of humanity cannot think for themselves. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the experiment. There's an experiment where it has been done multiple times, right? It has been done multiple times. But I think the sitting standing experiment is the easiest. There is a line of people, and they are told to sit or stand with the sound of a beep. And when the beep happens, they either stand or sit. And all of the people are in the experiment except for the last person. And the last person was not given any instructions, and they do not know why everyone is standing and sitting whenever they hear a beep. But guess what happens with that last person who does not know what's happening? They won't ask questions. They won't sit there and mind their business and do what they want to do. They'll start following suit without question. They'll start following suit without asking any questions. And that is the nature, the psychology of the human being, to just do what others do because it is safe. So, because Christianity has had the ability to colonize and force itself upon the majority of the planet, it is now the safe option to choose for people who do not know any better. But I tell you, I implore you to do your own research and make an informed decision. I'm not telling you all to come to the mother, but it would make sense if you did. I'm not telling you to do that, but what I'm telling you to do is take some time to make an informed decision. Learn about all the religions you can. Have I studied all 4,000 religions? No. But I've done enough research to know the truth of all that is. No, sometimes, again, like I said, it is a subconscious psychological happening based off of your nervous system. Your nervous system will make you do things based off of what feels the most safe. So it's not even a choice that you're consciously making all the time. Sometimes you have to go against what feels most comfortable. And most people are not comfortable doing that. You know what I'm saying? Most people are not comfortable being uncomfortable, you know? And because of that, they will follow. You know what I'm saying? They will follow. But be mindful of what you're following. That's what I have to say. Be mindful of what you're following. Learn, ask questions. It would have been better if he would have just asked everybody, like, what y'all standing up for? That was a very simple question to ask. What y'all standing up for? Do I need to do this? Is this required by the institution that we're in? That is a simple question. Is this an indicator for something? Am I signing up for something? Just ask. And by what they say, you choose whether you want to participate or not. Yes, it makes very much sense that God is a woman, especially a black woman, right? I go into this a lot, you know. It's a very simple concept, a very simple concept. Black in itself is primordial. It is the combination of all things. And if we're thinking about source, if we're speaking about God, right? God is the beginning of all things. It is the source of all things. So then that means it would have to be primordial. Primordial means before the beginning or from the very beginning. Primeval, right? So therefore, it would be the accumulation of all things, which is blackness. Blackness is the infinite potentiality of everything. It is chaos. It is the abyss. It is the void. It is exactly what we hold in our wombs as we walk this planet. It is the potentiality of life. It is the space by which we create. And another thing is, now that we have broken down the Bible, which obviously I can like break it down deeper than what I've done today, but because we have broken down the Bible, we need to get used to, in conversation, not referencing the Bible as the end all be all of knowing, right? Like according to the Bible, right? We need to not do that. We need to stop doing that, because as we have discovered, the Bible is more so than anything a political book. It tells you how to be, it tells you how to conquer, right? It is not something that tells you um the metaphysical truth of reality. It is something that hides that from you, right? It hides that part from you. And the reason why I know it hides that part from you is because that part was taken out and that was hidden from you. It's a part of the Apocrypha. What is the book called? I forgot. It's a part of the Apocrypha where Solomon was speaking about how he knows the mother is the mother that gave him the knowledge of the cosmos, right? It was the mother, as in Sophia, as in he's speaking about the goddess, the mother of Yahweh, that gave him the knowledge of the cosmos. So again, the metaphysical truth of reality is not in the Bible because it was taken out strategically so that you wouldn't know, so that you can remain dumb. Just like Yahweh was mad when Eve, quote unquote, ate the fruit and enlightened Adam because they were no longer dumb. The whole premise of the book is to make you dumb or keep you dumb so that you can blindly follow Yahweh. That's the premise of the book. So it is not an authority when it comes to metaphysical truth. And I want people to understand that. No, don't walk into the light. No. The light, the light is blinding, right? You gain true enlightenment by entering the darkness. And I don't think that's something that a lot of people are used to hearing or ready to even accept or understand what that even means. Yes, yes, yes. Very good, very good. I'm so glad you guys are getting this book. I'm glad that you're getting this book. This book goes through archaeological evidence and, different things that different scholars are saying, which helps with understanding the destruction of the goddess religion. But what I'm speaking about is who the goddess is herself, what she teaches, what our culture is. And I think after this book, that's what I want to get into, right? Light comes from darkness. Light comes from darkness. So again, darkness or blackness is the accumulation of all things, which means light emerges from the blackness, right? But light is also an amalgamation of all different resonances of light, right? So when you separate light by the different frequencies, you get color, right? You get color. But put all the colors together, put all of the frequencies together, and you get a blinding light or something that would like burst your eardrums because it is all frequencies together. That's what light is. So when you step into the light, right, you are essentially destroying yourself, destroying your cognitive awareness because you cannot perceive in that. You cannot perceive in that, right? The best way to come to enlightenment or understanding is to go into the darkness. The darkness is where transformation happens. The darkness is where all things exist. The darkness is where you have the ability. Again, sit there. I want you all to sit. Sit down. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. And I want you to breathe. If you can, at any point in time, I want you to do this meditation when you have the ability to, because you can't do it right now because I'm speaking to you. But the point is to take away sight and hearing. So you would also put yourself in a quiet room. You would also put on some big earphones that would cancel out any noise around yourself. And I want you to sit in that darkness. You are creating the darkness in there, right? Another way you can do this meditation is by going underwater. That is another way that you can do this meditation. Go underwater. If you go into a pool, it's easier to do so because you don't have a lot of things going on. Go under the water with your eyes closed. Notice how the water muffles sounds of the outer world, right? That is you placing yourself in a simulation of what the primordial abyss is like. You are encompassed by water, much like you are in the womb with amniotic fluid, right? The best place to do this is in the ocean. And the reason why I say the ocean is because in the ocean, there is movement. In the ocean, there is chaos, right? And it is dark in the ocean, especially at night. So if you're courageous enough, right? I've done this. I've done this, right? And again, if you are someone who wants to understand what it's like to be in the void, in the abyss, to go into the darkness, this is the best way to do so. Go into the sea at night, close your eyes, allow the water to cancel out noises from this world, and listen. And I don't mean listen with your ears, listen with your third eye. Stay there for as long as you can hold your breath. Do not come up. And see what revelations come to you. Okay? See what revelations come to you. Notice your thoughts. What comes up? That's how you become enlightened. When you continue to do this particular practice of going into the darkness, this is a fundamental practice of Yonism that we practice in our community, going into the darkness. It requires a time of isolation. We can either do it as an independent meditation practice of what I just described, or we can actually take time away from other people and be in silence. Because when you're silent and you're not constantly being bombarded with different sounds or signals from this planet, you actually have the ability to listen and hear, to receive downloads from the ether. That can happen once you're not being bombarded and distracted by everything that's around you. So, darkness, silence, or at least the low hum of potentiality, that is where you get your enlightenment. That's where you get your downloads. That's where you come to know things beyond what you've been told. Okay. So, again, if you would like to learn more about that, you know, then just make sure that, you message me, and, we can start you on Yanism classes. There's also an initiation process for those who really want to get deeper into this practice. For those of you who are actually ready to enter into the world of the Mother Goddess, that's up to you guys. But until then, we shall continue this book club. So tomorrow we're going to read chapter 9. Okay, chapter 9 tomorrow. So I'm going to conclude this live here. I want to thank you all so much for spending time with me this morning. I want to thank you so much for your input, your comments, for supporting my live, for sending the gifts. I want to thank you all so much for following and, being a part of the discussion. Okay, thank you so much. We will be live again tomorrow, same time, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll be reading chapter 9 of When God Was a Woman. Okay, enjoy the rest of your day.